today, I guess I can introduce myself first. My name is Emma, and I am at the Maine Math and Science Alliance. And so we do all sorts of different professional development in all different areas. The projects that I work on personally are ACRES, which is after school coaching for reflective educators in STEM, very specific to out of school educators such as yourselves, librarians, after school, 4-H, all sorts of different organizations bring their educators to us, and we do virtual coaching and sort of in these professional learning communities where you get to connect with other educators as well. In addition, I have started to work on the Maine State Science Fair team and the middle school science and engineering fair in Maine. So I have some hands in the formal world as well. And then before working at MMSA, I worked at, the third project that I work on is Teach Me Outside. So that's sort of a combination of the formal and informal world, where we do workshops to try to increase the culture of teaching outside in different organizations. So trying to take those educators who are really excited about the idea and give them the support that they need, and building it up within their staff and their colleagues to say, how can I get more people on board to do this with me? Before I worked at MMSA, I worked at the Seco Science Center in Rye, New Hampshire, which is a small aquarium. Looks like you're familiar with it, Anne. And so I have also a background in informal education, doing lots of field trips and outreach programs, and working with people of all ages to get them excited about science and the environment. So today I'll be doing the first couple of hours of this training. I'll be here till about noon, and then I'll turn it over to Chris and the rest of the Maine State Library team to introduce the kits that you all were made aware of, and some actual physical materials that you can dive into. So we'll talk about some strategies this morning, and then hopefully you'll get a chance to practice applying some of those this afternoon. All right, so now I will share my screen. And I would love to just go around and do some introductions. I'm hoping that we can make this interactive. Oh, if you'll load. So essentially just your name, where you work, and something you like to learn about. So that can be anything STEM related, anything related to work, or outside of work related topics. So Anne, would you like to share?
Okay, sure. I don't have a microphone plugged in. I hope everyone can hear me okay. So I'm Ann Spinney. I am the Assistant Dean for Learning Resources at Northern Maine Community College, which means I'm the library director, employing students and ordering our resources and so forth, and cataloging and all that stuff. I just wanted to add that I'm here not just because we have one of the kits, but because we do a lot of programming for our students trying to make math and science fun. We have a Wednesday forum I started last year, and my colleague, who's the tutoring coordinator, has just taken it over, and he's doing a great job. But like, I'm hoping to do something on hyperbolic crochet shortly, which I've been interested in for years. So I'll put my scarf on later and show you. Something I like to learn about. Well, I used to be an ethnomusicologist, and I still love to learn dances and folk music. So
very cool.
And anything about math. I love math.
Very cool. What is hyperbolic crochet?
If you can see me, where did I put it? Oh dear. It's like, oh, I must have taken it home. Well, here's another one that's in progress. So you see, you crochet too many stitches, and it does that.
Oh, very cool.
So there's actually there's a mathematician that has written a lot of papers about it, hyperbolic space, and how you can actually create it using crochet. And she goes to conventions wearing these weird dresses.
That's amazing. I love that. Awesome. And Haley, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Haley. I am the Director of Development at the Auburn Public Library. And I wanted to join because we used to have a kids program weekly that was STEM based, and I feel like lately it's just turned into arts and crafts time. So we actually just renamed it, and I would really like to be able to get some ideas to bring that more STEM focused activity back.
Mm, awesome. And what is something that you like to learn about in general?
Gosh, well, right now I am a student at the University of Maine, Augusta, getting my degree in library sciences, and I like learning all of the stuff. But right now, I'm taking the teen course, and it's just amazing. I love it.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And we'll have some continued discussions throughout our time together. So I love to hear from you all what your experiences are. All right. So the first question we have is, what is STEM? We're here to talk about STEM. We're going to do a little bit of demystifying of STEM and then dive into some different facilitation strategies to elevate your programming a little bit, add in some more opportunities for youth to really explore who they are and what their relationship is to STEM. But I think it's an interesting acronym to explore. We have this one way of saying it, but really everything is intertwined and could be rearranged in all of these different ways. I learned recently that National Science Foundation actually called it SMET originally. So it has been rearranged itself over the years as well. So first off, why should we facilitate STEM activities? Do you all have any thoughts on that? Why is it important to you and your programming?
I think it's important because, at least for me personally, I know like for Mike, I have 4 kids and they are all math and science focused. That's what their strong suits are. They're in elementary and middle school, whereas it's not mine at all or my personal interest. And I feel like they are not getting the level of satisfaction from the school's time that they have. And so having that opportunity to like learn more and stuff at the library is so key.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point. And hopefully we can take a step closer to making it more your thing today,
Yeah.
Haley. STEM is everywhere, so we'll talk about that some more for sure. But yeah, that out of school time is so important. There are, everyone spends so much more time outside of school than in school. So those can be the great opportunities to engage our youth in that programming.
And for adults, a lot of people have math and science anxiety. And, we never talk about reading anxiety, but people have that too, because I've noticed that people just read books about people that are like themselves. And they read books that are the same formula over and over again. And they don't read, the Nobel Prize winner from another country and that wrote it in another language. But with the science and math anxiety, I think it's really sad because, as I put in the chat, I call it STEAM because I see math in everything. And like even crochet. I took statistics for fun about 10 years ago, and I asked the professor, so what's the equation for like a sock, like the shape of a sock? And she was like, oh, get out of here, because I was sitting knitting a sock in class. But it's true. I mean, there is, and that's how when they knit socks on machines, they need to know those equations, right? So it's everywhere, and you're doing it all the time, and it's just not something that we should all be anxious about. I really am sad when people say they have math anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is so true. And thank you for adding in the A to our conversation as well. The art, always so important as well. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about some strategies to get rid of that anxiety and make it more accessible to all youth. All right, so here is just another, you all hit on most of these points, but the framework for K through 12 science education did add in some, justification for why are they doing this. And so to ensure that by 12th grade, all students have some appreciation of the beauty and wonder of science, possess sufficient knowledge of science and engineering to engage in public discussions on related issues, so bringing it to the larger picture, are careful consumers of scientific and technological information, and are able to continue to learn about science outside of school. So having those really just those baseline skills to ask questions and get outside of their comfort zone. If something makes them anxious, ask the right questions to figure out how to make things seem less scary. All right. Awesome. And our next. So overall, we're going to talk about this idea of demystifying STEM that we've already talked about a little bit. And then the 3 skills that we are going to focus on today are asking purposeful questions, student voice and choice, and how to elevate that a little bit in any given activity. And then talk about STEM identity as well. So how can you actually get students to think, okay, this is a part of my own identity that I'm doing every day, and hopefully a part of your identity as well. So this is more just for me, an outline of where we're going to be going. So spend about the first half hour on this, what is STEM, then transition to purposeful questions. We'll take a little bit of a stretch break because it's always hard to sit in front of a screen for too long, and then dive into the next skills. All right, so now I'm going to ask you to put on your youth hat. So when starting to facilitate any sort of conversations about STEM, these are some of the questions that you may ask them that might help you to get a sense of where the youth are. So if you are a youth, you can pick age or anything else, a youth coming to your library, and you ask them, what is a scientist? What are some answers that you think they might give?
I think there's probably a wide range of answers, but a person who studies things, or
Yeah.
someone who works in a lab with,
Yep. Maybe talking about the setting where they're studying things in the lab.
I wonder if some people here might, because we have a more adult age population, 18 is when they start coming here, and they're all enrolled in compulsory science core classes. They might say something like, a scientist is someone who tests things.
Testing things. Okay. Yeah. Studying, testing, working in a lab.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So talking about the science practices, we essentially, a scientist is anyone who is engaging in any of these things. And these come out of the NGSS best practices for science education. But essentially thinking about the scientific method, the scientific process, any of these practices are considered to be a part of that. So observations and questioning, making models, modeling something, which doesn't mean like, you know, building an architecture model, but instead just trying to get a sense of, through a sketch or an explanation, what do you already have an understanding of? Carrying out investigations, explaining evidence, and sharing information. So to simplify this a little, I like to think about just what are the questions that we can ask students to get them thinking about these different or engaging in these different steps. So for observations and questioning, starting out with observing the natural world, what do you notice? What do you wonder? So it could be as simple as, you know, pointing out one particular object outdoors or one particular environment, and saying, what do you notice? And then changing it a little bit more into a question, what do you wonder about? And keeping that open-ended so that it's not one particular answer that you're looking for. Then moving into modeling, what do you think or already know? How can we find out more to investigate? So we came up with these questions. Now, how can we find out more about it? What did we figure out in terms of, okay, so maybe we came up with some qualitative data, maybe we came up with some quantitative data, maybe we just searched on the internet and now we need to figure out how to explain this in our own words. And then sharing out with others. So after you find out some really cool information, how can you then share that with other people? Is it through a whole presentation or just the way that you can share it with your neighbor or your friend the next time you see them? All right, so now putting on that youth hat again, what do you think a youth would say to this question? What is an engineer?
Someone who builds stuff.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, I was thinking more like someone who has more of like a design aspect in their building of stuff.
Design, building, I like it.
We have so many programs here that involve the word engineering. Automotive engineering, network engineering. I mean, there's just so many different kinds of engineers walking around here. I don't know what the young people would say. We have water quality engineers. I mean,
Yeah, so what do all those people have in common?
yeah. I don't know if they would even see them. I wonder, I should ask them that question next time we have one of our Wednesday gatherings. See what they come up with.
I think maybe like because they maintain something in their specific field.
Oh, they measure also. I think that's very important. I mean, the ones we see here in the library, we're also the tutoring center and they're coming in for math. So I think measuring is very important to these people. Measuring and calculating, doing calculations.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, measuring, calculations, maintaining things,
Yeah.
design. Awesome. So when youth are asked what are engineers, this was a study done a little while ago, so it may have changed. Maybe we've changed the landscape a little bit. A lot of the time, this is what they will draw. People building things, people building bridges, tools. Maybe they know a computer engineer. And then for maybe the younger crowd, an engineer is someone who drives a train. So all sorts of different examples. But the definition we want to work with today is someone who uses their creativity and knowledge of math and science to design things that solve problems. And this comes from the Museum of Science's program, Engineering is Elementary. A lot of the stuff that we'll talk about will come out of that today. So there are some nuances to this. Any thoughts on this definition? Anything, any questions that you have from this definition?
I love it. This is such a great definition.
Yeah.
I really like that they put creativity right up there front.
Yes, adding in that STEAM component for sure. Awesome. So we've got, you know, as we're building our acronym, we've now got the M, we've got the S in there, we've got the E. So then some of the engineering habits of mind that we can think about are essentially just ways of changing the way you're thinking, the way that youth are thinking, and some of the practices that they are engaging in when engineering. So we want them to be collaborating effectively, persisting and learning from failure, applying math knowledge to problem solving, considering problems in context. So not just, you know, we're building with blocks to build with blocks, but what are some bigger contexts that we could put this in? Thinking about systems, and then communicating those things effectively, investigating properties and use of materials. Maybe they're using computers to solve those problems. So all of these are great tools that, or hopefully the things that are coming out of your STEM programming, creating these habits of mind.
I love that. Can I just interject? The students here, I bought them a giant box of Lego, and that's often out, just little bunches of it all over the tables. And also dominoes. They love to play with the dominoes. Just like when they're sitting studying, they'll just be like randomly fooling with these things on the side.
Yeah, definitely. So already that like tinkering, I feel like we already are, as kids, wired in to have that tinkering, that play, that experimentation wired into us. So again, just trying to elevate that and take it a step further. Like maybe what's something that you could go up and ask those students as they're building with dominoes, that might get them to think deeper about what they're doing. We'll practice a little of that later. All right. So the engineer, similar to, we think of like the scientific process where we have all of these different practices. The engineering design process is also essentially like, if you are doing any of these things, then you are an engineer. So it starts, it gives us this, you know, circular configuration, but it's really messy. You can jump around to any of these different things. But essentially asking, what is the problem? What have others done from the problem? What are some solutions? Choosing the best idea. Planning. So after you have imagined some ideas, then drawing something out, thinking about what materials am I going to use? How might this work in terms of what my constraints? I only have this amount, but how can I, you know, work within that? Then moving to the actual creation stage. And actually, what I found it really helpful to see this, because as having a background working specifically with very little kids, you give them some materials and a few seconds later, you know, even if it's a craft or some simple activity that they're doing, the creation phase can sometimes just be the whole thing. But if you start by showing them materials or showing them some things, having them draw out activities, it can really deepen their thinking and also extend like the length and the depth of the activity itself. So starting with the ask, imagine, plan, then the actual creating, which is what we often think of with the STEM and the engineering. And then if there's time and space, giving students then the ability to improve upon their design. And that can be within the within the same building process. You know, you're always sort of like trying things out, and if it doesn't work, you can try something else. Or it can be a larger iterative process where you try something out, actually test it, and then go back to the drawing board and start all over again. All right, so now the T in STEM, again, putting those youth hats on, what do you think youth might give for answers in what is technology? Or it could be your own definition as well. What do you think technology is?
Most of the young people that I interact with would say technology is computers. But again, I think like the students here would have a different idea because all their programs are technology programs.
I agree. I think that at least from like the younger kids' perspective, technology is the tools that they have available to them to create even, you know, this stuff that they're working on at school or drawing or anything like that.
Yeah, tools. I like that.
The wheel, a pulley, any simple engineering or any simple machine rather.
Machines, simple machines. Awesome. Yeah, so oftentimes I think, like, again, hopefully we've already started changing this stigma, but a lot of suggestions that came out when kids were asked this during one study were computers, robots, cars, phones, video games, all of those sorts of things. But like you all are saying, it is a tool or anything designed by humans to help solve a problem. So that could be an object, a system, or a process. So objects are being like the physical things that we think about. Systems could be like multiple things all moving together. So for instance, a glue stick, like there's multiple pieces working together in that system. Or a process. So it could be as simple as a recipe. So this is the way that you make brownies. Step 1, turn the oven on. So that is one version of technology.
You know, the classic anthropology studies put music in technology. Like if you read, like they go through chapter by chapter, what's the, you know, marital structure, blah, 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 and then care of children, and they go to technology, and music is always under technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's so true. And in addition to that, thinking about storytelling, books, like all the communication that we have through our language. Yeah, I think there was something that I heard about lately. It was sort of an extension of that, but I'm blanking on exactly what it was. But yes, definitely. All right. So now let's take 30 seconds, grab an object that can fit in one hand. And Haley, if you're able to turn your camera on, that would be great. But if not, no worries. You can also just tell us what you were able to grab. So I'm going to grab something and then hold it up if you can to the camera. Any object.
My favorite. I think they're one of the world's greatest inventions.
Awesome. As a lefty, I disagree. I don't love scissors because they're harder for a lefty to use.
We have an equal number of lefty and righty scissors in my life. I don't know why.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. All right. So now I think we can just do this as a whole group, but later on I will send you all into a breakout group just to have some little conversations. But in general, what do you think of your object? Is your object a technology what is your technology? What is it? A description. What problem does it solve? What else could it be used for? What is it made out of? And are there any other materials that it could be made out of? So starting out, what is your object a technology, do you think?
What was our definition of a technology again?
Yep, and I can go back.
Okay.
So sorry, I cannot get my camera thing to work at all.
Okay.
But in my hand, I have a pair of reading glasses, blue light reading glasses, which I do feel are a technology tool in that they make everything easier for me to see, and my eyes don't hurt as much at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. So what problems are they solving?
They are solving the issue of age and my eyesight getting worse. And they also, now I think that some people don't necessarily agree that this is true, but I feel like the light of the computer is beneficial to have the blue light glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since I spend the whole day on the computer, they are making my ability to see and not have headaches so much better.
Yeah, definitely. Which kind of leads me to another question. The technology that you're using in your computer, is that then causing another problem that then needs another solution?
Right. I feel like it's like a circle. Like I need the glasses because I need the computer, and I need the computer, and I need the glasses.
Yeah, definitely. The technology engineering loop for sure. And how about your object? Is it a technology, do you think?
Yes, it is designed by humans to cut things. I'm not sure quite why it's better than a knife. It cuts flimsy things. I guess that's really thin things. That's the difference. Like a knife, I couldn't cut a piece of, like this napkin, I could not cut with a knife, or a piece of cloth, but I can cut with the scissors. And I couldn't cut my hair very well with a knife. I mean, it would be really painful. I'd have to pull it really tight, right? But I can easily snip it with scissors.
Yeah.
So, and you had the question, what else could it be used for? And I have to admit, one of the reasons why I love scissors is because there's a scissors dance. It's a Mexican indigenous dance. And I think it relates back to trading, that they traded for scissors with Europeans, and they recognized the utility immediately. And so they were coveted objects. But it's kind of a crazy dance to watch because they have these big scissors and they're dancing around and going like this on the stage, which, you're not even supposed to run with scissors, right? So, but what else could it be used for? Well, I use it one-sided to open boxes. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at you all, and the cameras. Let me move this camera over. So I'm not...
Here, I'll stop share too, because we can.
Okay, there. So now, yeah, but I sometimes open boxes. I'd use it like a knife, with the scissors. Let's see, what else could you use them for?
Oh, Chris, you're muted. I think you were going to say something.
Not so much you can use it to poke holes, but I then realized that I was making like the psycho action.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's not what I meant. I meant, oh, curling ribbon. See, we'll go with Marika's curling ribbon.
Curling ribbon, yeah. You can actually poke holes with them. I've done that when I was like cutting a mask out of a piece of cardboard, just,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure people have been killed with scissors. So. What else could we use? I guess you could stir a drink with them if you really had.
Yeah, true, true.
I mean, maybe my next road trip when I'm reaching around trying to figure out, oh my gosh, I bought this thing and I have no fork. Maybe I'll just have a scissors in the car or something. Do an Amy Klobuchar and eat my salad with scissors. I have no idea. But they
Yeah.
could, like chopsticks, right?
Yeah, maybe you could pick something up, like sort of tongs with
I
them.
have actually done that. When I couldn't reach something, I've reached over and like grabbed a pencil with the scissors out of the pencil jar.
Yeah, definitely. So many different uses.
Absolutely. I love these even more now. Thank you, everybody.
All right. And Haley, any other uses you can think of for your glasses?
Yes, they make an excellent headband. So whenever my hair is in my way, I'm always putting them up on my head. It's my favorite use.
That is a great use. I use my sunglasses for that all the time.
Could you refract light with them and like burn a hole in a piece of paper or something?
I bet you could.
Yeah.
Just try. Probably not in my office. That would not be a good idea.
No.
Yeah, awesome. And so the next questions that we could discuss are thinking about what it's made of, the materials, and are there any other materials that could be made out of your object?
Well, I've seen plastic scissors for cutting lettuce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the glasses, you could probably make the frames out of pretty much anything, but the lens might be a little bit harder to replace with something else.
Yeah, they make them out of what? Plastic and glass.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, so these are conversations that can then spark thinking about technology, thinking about STEM in general. How can we relate to everyday objects and how they are our technology, and who are the people that created these things, and could I be the person to recreate them? Maybe there's some new material, like you're saying, that we could make scissors or glasses out of, and maybe it would solve a new problem. So awesome. The next thing we're going to do is transition into asking purposeful questions. And for this one, we're going to start to look at some videos. And I'm going to ask you to think about questions themselves. So I'll share my screen again. One of the things that we do as educators is to get prepped and ready for different lessons, thinking about, okay, what materials might I need? What space am I going to use? How much time am I going to use? And another thing that you can think about is, well, what sorts of questions might I ask during this time? So taking a look at our first video, this is going to be educator Tracy. She is doing an engineering project with her students and building a parachute. And so while watching this clip, I'm going to ask you all to think about what questions do you hear being asked of the youth, and what do you notice about the students' responses? So the questions and then how the students are then responding. And switch over here. Oh, right here. And I'm just going to make sure I'm sharing my sound.
Great work. I think you're an engineer. So you were dropping it more slowly. And what did you notice about how it behaved? Oh, so it had a little tip to it. Uh-huh.
Well, you have to open it
What's
up. to find
frustrating
out.
you right
can't
now?
tell without opening it up.
It won't stay.
Go
So you've
open
got,
it up with your
what are you thinking about using to help it stay better? Okay. Yeah.
You counted? Did you write it
Having a similar challenge with the twisty and the string.
I'll be at this place.
Okay, what's your thinking here? Tell me how it's gonna happen.
No. How do you stop? You just drop it and you say.
All right. I'm noticing that you have a twisty and a string. How might you put the two together? Twist it together.
If you twist this
Okay.
and then twist that way, just look.
Okay.
A little bit until they're well attached to each other. There you go.
How many hands does it take to do this job, do you think?
A lot.
Oh, that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to detach.
Now, this is real engineering, you know. Engineers don't work by themselves. They gotta have a team.
Twisties.
Can you get more twisties? I think we're good.
Level there.
Okay, well, hope people live.
Right. So what questions did you hear being asked?
Definitely the how and the what of things. You know, how is this going to work? What are you going to use to make it work? That kind of thing.
And then even really specific, what are you doing here? How many hands does it take?
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. Any other ones?
There weren't a lot of yes and no. They were all questions that could lead or answer other questions.
Yeah, a lot of open-ended.
Open-ended, yeah.
And what did you notice about how the youth responded to these questions?
Sounded like there was a group in the background that was commenting as well. So maybe the two were just representing like a group of kids, and it was very lively and people shouting things out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of fun being had.
Yes, for sure. All right, I'll share my screen again. So purposeful questions are, as defined by Click to Science, well-placed questions that drive STEM experiences and design questions while helping learners understand what they should focus on and where they should go next. So some examples of these questions are, thinking about how to get students to expand and clarify their thinking. You can ask, what more can you say about that? What do you mean by that? What's another example? Or repeating back sort of what you hear and saying, so I hear you saying this. Is this what you mean? Or something like that. And then questions to dig deeper. Why do you think that? How did you arrive at that conclusion? How does that idea compare to someone else's idea? Who can respond to that idea? Or who can add on to that idea? So some of the questions we were hearing are, like, what is your thinking? What are you thinking with these particular materials? Maybe what is frustrating you right now? So really just those questions to try to get deeper inside of a student's mind, thinking about, here is the process that you're working on, but how can you communicate it more to me on what you're doing? And that can help them to then process their own thoughts and share out, while also understanding more the decisions that they're making while they're maybe building something. Great. So I am going to send you all into your own breakout, a little bit of space and grace to reflect together as librarians, and just think about, in the past, how intentional are you, or in the present, how intentional are you with your questions? So we'll just take 5 minutes, give you all a chance to connect with each other and reflect on this particular skill. And it doesn't have to be, anything crazy. We're not asking for perfect answers or anything like that, just some reflection. Welcome back. Anything you'd like to share out from your breakout? No need, but I'll open it up in case you want to. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually do a little bit of practicing of purposeful questions. These videos are pulled from ACRES, so you're all getting a little bit of some tasters of each of the different cohorts that we do, modules that we do. So purposeful questions is our baseline module, and then we have other topics as well. And so this next video is taken from a library.
Now we're gonna.
Not that one yet.
I made a futurist.
All right. I don't know why as soon as I click on them, they start playing, but this next one is at a library, and it was taken from actually like a news highlight reel. And so these youth are participating in a STEAM activity that was presented to the public, and they were making some designs, I suppose. And so I'm going to play a very short clip of one youth, and I would love for you to think about what purposeful questions might you ask this youth.
I made a futuristic spaceship called Richard's Spaceship. At first I thought I was making a house, and I was just like, this is gonna turn out horrible, but it turned out to be really good as a spaceship.
All right. What purposeful questions might you ask that youth?
I guess I would ask him, why is it a good spaceship? Tell me one thing that makes it a good spaceship.
Yeah.
Or show me one thing that makes it a good spaceship.
Yeah.
But maybe not that directly. That might sound mean. I might say something like, wow, can you show me one of the things that makes it a great spaceship?
Yeah, I heard you change your tone there. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so digging deeper into what he's thinking, what makes it good.
What's his evidence? Why do you think that? How do you arrive at your conclusion? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Any other ideas for questions?
I'd want to know what his process was, going from a house to a spaceship. Like, how did that happen? What did you build that all of a sudden you looked at and you were like, this is no longer a house, this is a spaceship?
Yeah. Thinking about his process as it went through. All right. And I have another clip of another youth that is doing this same activity. So again, I'll play it. And what are some purposeful questions that you may be able to ask this youth?
I first made the flower and then I thought I should make a sun because I like how the sun goes on top of the flower.
Oh, and you're muted. I don't know if you were.
I would ask her, why did she think she needed to make a sun? And at first I would say, wow, that's really cool. What made you think you needed to make a sun for your flower?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes sense, right? But I want her to tell me why.
Yeah, getting into that thought process again, for sure.
And then I have some other questions I'd ask her too, but I want someone else to go.
Haley, any thoughts on questions? All right, and what else did you have?
I would ask her, about the shapes of the flower and the sun. Could she compare the shapes of the flower and the sun? I mean, that just struck me, that those triangles,
Yeah, comparing. So maybe something like, I'm noticing that you have similar shapes in both of these. So
Right.
what do you think about these similarities or differences?
What do you see? Do you see any similarities? Yeah. The triangles, like both are based on triangles, but she had the one that was like this and the other one was flat, 2-dimensional versus 3-dimensional. I thought that was cool.
Oh, it looks like Haley is back. Awesome. Thanks for letting us know you're back. We were just talking about some modeling of purposeful questions. So I don't know if you're able to see the videos that we just watched.
No, I missed the video that you just showed.
All right, I'll play just one again so that we can maybe add to the conversation a little bit. So essentially, this is a library that is doing STEM programming, and I have these short clips of youth. And so this is just an opportunity to think about what are some purposeful questions that you may be able to ask this youth after they present. So I'll share my screen real quick, and it's very short.
I first made the flower and then I thought I should make a sun because I like how the sun goes on top of the flower.
The steam.
All right. And Anne, do you want to share one of the questions that you were thinking of, and then maybe Haley chime in with another question?
I guess my first question was to ask her why what was the reason that she thought she should make the sun?
Yeah. Thinking about thought process there. So why do you think what was your thought process?
Right. Why did you think you need that? I'm sorry if you heard my phone ring there.
No worries.
Yeah, and I think then some follow-up on that, how she responds to that initial question about, could she tell us more about what she knows about what the interaction between the sun and the flower?
Mm-hmm.
Or what made her choose the flower in the first place?
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you brought up follow-up questions. That's a great transition into our next slide. So in acres, we like to think about purposeful questions, not just as the questions themselves, but also as a process. So in this image, we sort of have, we had talked about the engineering design process, and we can also think about asking questions as a process. So the first step being to plan some questions ahead of time. If you were the educator who was, putting out this activity and saying, okay, we're going to have them design things and these are the materials they're going to use, you can think about what are some questions that I could use that I might be able to ask during this program. Maybe I could ask them while they're thinking about their materials. Maybe I could ask them while they're building, or what are some questions I could ask at the end, similar to what we just saw in these clips. And then the next step is allowing time for thinking. So think time is something that is a learning process for me and can sometimes be challenging. But essentially, our rule of thumb is when talking to one or a few students, giving 3 to 5 seconds of wait time to allow them time to think about their answers to their questions. Oftentimes, it's really easy and tempting to fill the space if there isn't an answer right away, with another question or with your own answer to the question. But that little bit of time, 3 to 5 seconds, can really give students the opportunity to jump in and make sense of their thoughts. If you're talking to a larger group, if you have, a group of 30 students or something like that, another method for this could be to tell the whole group, okay, we're all going to take 30 seconds or 15 seconds to think about this question. And then after that, I'll call on people to answer. And that can be a good way to give all students the time to think about it, so that you don't always have the same student whose hand is, well worked to be shooting up into the air all of the time. And then third, listening, active listening to the response of the students. And then Haley, as you just said, then coming up with some follow-up questions. And so after they say, oh, well, I made the flower or I made the sun because I think that suns are pretty on top of flowers, or, I always see suns on top of flowers in pictures. Like there could be some sort of follow-up question to, well, why do you think that you see flowers with suns a lot, or something like that. So all of these are, a process, but as you can see, like it's a cycle, but also you can jump around a lot. And some of the things can be planned and some of the things can't be planned. So it's a ever-going learning process to practice asking purposeful questions. And it can be as simple as saying, can you give me an answer to this? Which can be a narrow-ended question of, yes, I know the answer. No, I don't know the answer. Or can you share your thoughts? Or please share your thoughts with me. It then makes it into a more of an invitation to just share out your thoughts. And there's not a yes or no. There's not a one answer that you're looking for. So yeah, acknowledging that it's hard to think of questions in the moment, even with these little clips. It's hard to think, okay, what am I going to ask the student as they're talking about their spaceship or their flower? So yeah. Any thoughts on purposeful questions?
I have a question. Do you, with the younger ages, do you use think, pair, share?
You can. It depends probably on how young you're talking.
Yeah.
I think, with like preschool, kindergarten, they're not quite at that stage where they would be able to stay on topic. But as you're moving more into the older elementary, certainly middle school, yeah, you can have them turn to each other and and also working with groups, like if you give them a task to work on together or to share their project with each other, if there's like that tangible thing that they're turning and talking about, then I think that can definitely be a great opportunity.
And then they tend to kind of clump in affinity groups so that it's not so spooky to talk to people they're already with than to like speak up in front of the whole group.
Yeah, definitely. What also works really well with doing STEM activities is if you do have those groups that naturally form, instead of asking the whole group at any given time, bopping around to the different groups and saying, oh, I see that you're, halfway through your building process here, and what questions can you ask? And then moving around if you have that opportunity. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, as a teacher, when somebody brought up Think, Pair, Share to me for a classroom discussion, it just totally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed to say how long I'd been teaching until they threw that at me. And I was like, oh my God, that's the answer to everything. But that's college age. So
yeah, another what that reminds me of is also just something that I have learned more recently, where it's also just thinking about the work, like who is doing the work in your time together. And it really should be the students who are doing the hard thinking, who are, trying to think through these hard challenges and problem solving and, using all of those engineering habits of mind. It shouldn't be up to you to be thinking about all of those things. You want to ask the right questions and give them the right opportunities to turn and talk and think about those topics, for sure.
right.
That's one of the things that I like about the rephrasing aspects of the conversation. And I think a lot with the younger kids that I interact with, it gives them that like confidence that you're actually listening to what they're saying, and what they're saying isn't stupid, and really gives them that like platform to continue on with whatever it is they're working on and how they're thinking about it, and not being afraid to share their opinions about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it can be actually, that's like a great example of a question as well. Even just if a student is saying, I'm putting the twisty and the string together, even repeating that back and saying the twisty and the string together can prompt them to keep talking more about what they're saying. And like you're saying, is a great acknowledgement of the fact that you're hearing them and you are interested in their thought process. So I just shared in the chat, before I forget, a handout that has sort of an overview of everything that we are doing today. It is in the format of a checklist. And so essentially just what are some things that you can think about ahead of time when planning to facilitate some STEM activities? So the first thing up there, I'll share my screen as well. The first thing up there is, if you need some help finding activities, you're going to have some great opportunities or activities that are in the kits if you're participating in the kits that Chris created. But if you are looking for some more ideas, How to Smile is a great resource that you can actually look for activities all based on different filters. So it's similar to like a Pinterest, where there's a lot of different websites that are sort of housed on here. And then if you want to search for some sort of activity, it's like energy is one that I searched for recently. You can also filter all of the results. So it's giving us 251 results for energy in general. But if you say, okay, well, I only have $5 that I can spend on this activity. I'm looking for age range, maybe 11 to 14-year-olds. And I only have 5 to 10 minutes to actually complete this activity. You can narrow it down pretty quickly. now we have 5. You can also put in, prep time, resource type, subject, and it will narrow it down even more. But it can bring you to all of these different resources. This one is from a museum of science in Chicago. Some of them are like, I've come across PBS ones, NOAA. So again, all different sources, but they're all kind of vetted and put into this great resource bank. So that's the first sort of item on the checklist. Purposeful questions being the second, with some good examples down here. And then what we'll dive into now are thinking about elevating youth voice and choice, and thinking about opportunities to connect the activity to STEM identity. So that is something that you can, take with you after this and reference, share out with your staff and colleagues. But I wanted to just go through that before I forgot. So next, we'll look at elevating youth voice and choice. So it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Thinking about how can you get students to make their own choices in your STEM activities, and also talk about what their needs are, what their wants are as they go through this programming. So we're going to watch another little video. And this video has a a zoo educator, her doing a project with, it looks like a camp group. And my questions for you are, what kinds or what evidence do you see that youth voice was considered in the planning of this activity? So what voice and choice evidence do you see? And also, what are some opportunities for additional ways that you could elevate the youth voice and choice? What could you do to shift the activity? All right. Done.
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual. Squawk.
That's Limu's line.
What is happening?
That's Limu's line.
How do we advance social impact through philanthropy? We build relationships, trust, and strategies informed by nonprofits and communities. But too often, the path to impact gets blocked by funders. In trying to do their due diligence, funders set up requirements and
About that. Nope, now we're on the wrong video. Huh, man, we'll find it. There we go.
Now we're going to go to a place that a lot of people call down under. Somewhere down under. So who thinks they know where the land down under is? Australia. Australia. Good. Australia. Good. Now,
having youth create a project based on their interests is a great way to give youth a voice in the learning. As the capstone, youth need to engage others in what they learned. Watch as Kevin, a frontline staff for an out-of-school program, works with youth to create a game based on their study of animals from Australia. At the end of the week, youth will go out into the community and engage people and share what they have learned. Notice effective tools youth use to ensure success: scientific journals, group collaboration, time, and space to work on their projects and materials.
so this week we're going to be learning about different Australian animals, which we have here at the zoo, of course, so you guys will see that, but also about Australian culture. We're going to be learning about things called boomerangs, those things you throw, We're going to be learning about all sorts of cool stuff. But you guys will be keeping notes about what we're going to be learning about, and you guys are going to be putting that on a poster. Does that make sense? So what things do you think would make a good poster? What would be good to have on a poster or a presentation, Carmen?
Maybe we could use Australian slang.
A slang, right? What else makes, if you were to show a poster about anything, not just Australia, what would you want on the poster? What would you want? Facts. Raise your hand if you think it needs facts. I think it needs facts. Good. What else? Yes?
Pictures of animals.
Pictures. You guys want something to be eye-catching, right? Catch people's attention. If they're walking by, they're going to be like, oh. So, during the week, I want you guys to be taking careful notes about the different things we learn each day. Be thinking about the animals that you really like. Important facts. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to be looking for Australian animals. All right, and then once we get to one, you make, I found one. And then we're each gonna stop and we're gonna write down our observations. That means we're gonna be looking at the habitat. We're gonna be looking at what the animal looks like. You could draw pictures or write words. You're gonna think about what it eats. Like, does it have sharp teeth like the dingo? Or does it have a beak? Because we're gonna use that in our presentations, our poster boards, okay? Do you think this would help your poster or not help your poster? It would help? Okay, Felipe, why don't you go grab some scissors and a piece of glue, okay? And then you're just working on making it attractive to the viewers, right?
I was gonna use them to try to draw Tasmanian devil.
Oh, so you want to hand draw them?
Like I wanted like to hand draw them, then put the actual picture under them.
I love it. Good job.
You guys want to play the game? All right.
Okay, you need to guess an animal, and when you pick an animal, then guess if it's an herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore.
So, what do you think? Dingo, it's like a coyote. What do you think it eats?
Meat.
Make sure you guys think.
All right, so that would make it a carnivore.
You
want to guess one? What do you think a camel eats?
All right. So what are some evidence of voice and choice that you saw in this video?
I think the one that stood out for me the most is when the kid said that he wanted to draw the picture of the Tasmanian devil and then put the actual photo of it in his like, oh yeah, I love it. That was so great. That was really, supporting his choice of what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and it definitely seemed like it maybe was something that he wasn't thinking about ahead of time, but he was like, yes, definitely. Like,
Yeah, you could see him like pause for a second. He's like, yeah, all right, love it. Let's go with it. Great.
I think when he was asking them what should go on the poster, like polling them, I thought that was great. And at first somebody said facts, and then pictures, that was great.
I think that there could have been, sorry, my video's not on. I think there could have been more voice and choice because they were kind of told, look, we're going to do posters. And even though they were given a choice, they weren't really pulled on their choice. Like, we're going to do these things to make sure that you have these 3 things. I think it would have been better if he gave different options. Like, hey, you could have made a game, or you could have made a poster, or you could have, talk it through students who were like, we really want to do this. And given them that opportunity.
Yeah, like maybe done the observations first, Chris, and then said, what do you want to do with this that you learned? How do you want to share this, right? Wasn't that one of our questions? How do we share this?
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely I hear you pulling in the scientific process, like the sharing out of, okay, so we're finding out some information about these things, and how are we going to share out that information? Definitely. Any other ideas for shifting the activity to including more use of voice and choice?
As someone who's run summer programs, I understand why he didn't let them choose their own pictures to print out because it would have taken forever. But at the same time, I think it would have been nice if they could have had more than just 3 or 4 pictures of kangaroos.
Yeah, so maybe getting them to do some of their own like searching for pictures, definitely. Oh, and you're muted.
At the end when the kids were presenting and the caregiver with the 2 kids came by, and so a dingo is like a coyote, so what do you think it eats? So that's a carnivore, right? Like there wasn't a lot of opportunity pausing and letting the kid so if a dingo is like a coyote, what do you think it eats? And what kind of, is that a herbivore? He didn't ask the second question. He just said, so that's a carnivore, right? And then it turns to the second child. I thought that the caregiver could have been a little more, given him more time.
More wait time. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Haley, did I see you unmute at one point?
Yeah, I was just gonna piggyback on what Chris said about it as running a program, like you don't want to go too far with, how much rain people have, but giving them at least like a couple of choices to pick from lets them feel like they have more ownership in it. And I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a great point. Like one idea I have thought about in the past watching this video is, why was Australia chosen? But at the same time, like in the real world, you have constraints on projects and specific things that goals that you're trying to accomplish. So it is okay to have those barriers and those boundaries, but within those, thinking about what are some ways that you can also create some options. All right, so in the handout that I just outlined for you, there is this graph, which gives a couple of different opportunities for elevating youth voice and choice, and it's sort of on a spectrum. The top being some things that might be easy to manipulate and think about, and then towards the bottom, I don't know why it's being so slow in sharing. Towards the bottom, more in-depth ways to increase the youth voice and choice. So when thinking about an activity, if the activity includes working with materials, considering inviting the youth to choose how much, like what types of materials, how many materials. So, when he was offering the photos, like it seemed like he only had a couple of options, but maybe presenting it more in terms of an option of, do you want to draw something? Do you want to print out a picture? And then maybe increasing the options of, well, you can search for your own picture instead of me printing them for you. One down towards the middle of our table, thinking about learning STEM content. So asking the youth to choose what part of the lesson they're most interested in digging into. What are they wondering about? So it did seem like in this video, they had some examples of choosing which animal within Australia they wanted to focus on. But maybe, considering even more options in terms of, you have the whole zoo, you can choose any animal in the whole zoo. Just thinking about really honing in on their own interests and what is interesting to them, because STEM is fun. We want it to be fun. And then towards the bottom, we have more of, if your activity includes a fixed ending, if there are, you have like 20 minutes to do an activity, you're usually aware of the time and being the timekeeper, but giving them also a heads up and an option about what are some different ways that they could use that time can also be a great way to make them feel heard and make them feel like they have some options. So that could be as big as, okay, we have 20 minutes, we can work on this project or we can work on this project. Or it could just be, in our last 5 minutes, we could either continue to work on building this, or we could move on to presenting our options to other people, like which would you rather do. So just some of those are some examples of ways to increase youth voice and choice. All right, and moving along, because I know we're getting close to the end, we'll do a little bit of an overview of nurturing STEM identity and making career connections. All right, so our first activity, I'm going to share actually a Jamboard. And Jamboard is on its way out, apparently. This is a tool that we have used, and so I'm going to use it while we still have the opportunity, but there are things very similar, such as Zoom whiteboards and things like that, that are great tools as well. So I'll share my screen. This is a Jamboard that we will use, and the question is here at the top. What have you done in the past week that relates to STEM? So we've done a lot of talking about what is STEM, what are these 4 different categories, how are they related? And this is one activity that you can do with youth to get them thinking about the STEM in their own lives that they interact with on a daily basis. So I'll put the link into the chat. And when you are able to log in, you can create a sticky note and type in your answer, choose your color you would like, and then it saves to the page, and then you can move it around. So again, the sticky note is right here. And so let's take 3 or 4 minutes to think about some ideas of what have you done that is related to STEM in the past week. Let me just grab that link. All right, so that is in the chat for you. Let me know if you have any trouble getting into the Jamboard. I can also add in some answers as well. Take about 1 more minute. Up some thoughts. Right, awesome. These are all great examples of STEM in your everyday lives. Winterized cat shelter, I see in multiple places. Would anyone like to chime in on why they chose multiple spots? Was that you, Chris?
I did that one. Well, because it touches all of them, we had to, do the plans, measure things, use tools to cut the stuff and put it together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so this is one activity that can just be a great way to, again, get students thinking about STEM and how it relates to their lives. So, and by doing that, increasing their STEM identity, seeing, okay, I do participate in science on a regular basis. I am thinking about math when I'm cooking and when I'm, sorting papers and all of those everyday items that we're doing on a regular basis. So this is just one activity to think about STEM identity. We're gonna transition kind of quickly into our last example of an activity. And then at the end, we'll have some chances to reflect on these and how they will or might pertain to your programming. So this next activity is called a photo elicitation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we're going to look at a photo. Oh, that's the one I was thinking of. And when looking at this photo, I would like you to think about what are some examples of STEM that you see in this photo. Why everything is so slow. Screen sharing has failed to start. That's weird. Try again. Technical difficulties. 1 second. All right, for some reason, I think it's my internet is so slow that it's not gonna, oh, here we go. All right, there we go. So my question for you is, what are some examples of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math that you can see in this photo?
Did we type them down or speak them?
You can speak up. Okay. You can type as well if you would prefer.
Well, I think the use of the magnifying glass could be considered technology. And also, I kind of wonder if the leaf pattern and the veins inside of the leaf is mathematical. I'm sure other people are shaking their head. Yes, they have more information on that than I do, but that's very cool.
No, I just typed the same things in the chat.
Great minds.
Yeah, definitely. Any other examples of STEM in this photo?
I'm assuming that someone had to grow that, so they've talked about the life cycle. I'm also, if you just want to talk about overall, they look like they're collaborating, which is used in all of the letters.
And possibly the older person is sharing knowledge with the younger people, which is part of science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and communicating using language, which we talked about earlier, is a technology.
And it looks like they're in a garden, which was engineered and created. And
yeah. I also noticed that one student has glasses on, which we talked about earlier, as being a technology.
2 students, actually. The one in the
Oh,
back.
yes, the one in the very back. You're right. Good
And
notice.
one in the front, she might be wearing a cast, or it might be just those sleeves that go over her.
Mm.
It looks like a cast, though, because it's not her other hand. Oh, the gloves, that's a technology, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What problem are those gloves solving?
Oof. A problem of getting things jammed up your fingernails that can cause horrible infections. Ask me how I know.
Oh, no. All right. And what STEM careers could be associated with this photo?
Biology, botany, agriculture, climatology, agronomy, economy.
So many.
so many choices.
Chemistry for fertilizer. Let's see, diesel hydraulics technology for the farm equipment.
All of the above, for sure. And as a STEM individual, or perhaps someone in a STEM career, what are some changes that you could make to this photo? You know, taking one of those careers, what changes might occur from someone's job in one of those STEM careers?
I think that you could zoom out on the photo quite a bit so that it captures more of their surroundings and gives more information about what's going on.
Thinking about the photographer themselves as part of this. I love that.
Yeah, is the light artificial or natural? Is it a greenhouse or outdoors? How's water distributed to the plants?
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to add hydroponics because it's just fun.
At my previous college, we had aquaponics. So they had fish, and then the wastewater from the fish tank was used to fertilize lettuce.
Because fish love to release nitrogen, and plants love nitrogen.
I can hardly hear what Chris said.
Oh, sorry. Fish love to release nitrogen, and plants love nitrogen. So it's actually a really cool system.
All right, awesome. So these two activities, the STEM mapping and the photo elicitation, are just two examples of activities that can be done with youth to get them thinking more about their own connection to STEM and how to identify with it, as well as thinking about possible careers and things that they might be interested in working in a future time. You know, there's so many opportunities and so many ways that things are tied into STEM that it's a great tool to make those connections. So moving on into some reflection, what are some ways, or how might you utilize some of these skills in your programming? So again, we did some demystifying STEM, asking purposeful questions, elevating youth voice and choice, and then did a little on STEM identity there at the end. any thoughts on applying it to your own world?
I think starting any sort of program with having them do that kind of Jamboard thing to get the program rolling is a really great icebreaker, and I'd love to incorporate that.
Yeah, I'm thinking I could do a program called You Do Math. No, you do all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you can break it down to be very low tech as well. Just use sticky notes in a wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. And then I'd love to just do a general reflection. So any additional thoughts that you have kind of in this format. So a rose, highlight success, something that went well for you today. A thorn, something you're still not sure of or still feels like a challenge. And then a bud, something that has you thinking about the future. So feel free to share 1, 2, or all 3 of these ideas.
I think for me, one of the things that I really took away from this was about the type of thoughtful questions and how that correlates into my actual role at the library, which is working with our donors and like generating more money for the library, and how just that way of digging deeper and getting a full story and a full picture of people's situations and how they want to support the library is really important. And then also meeting with my children's librarian and our teen librarian to kind of come up with some new ideas of how we can get these type of programs back in our calendar and what fun and exciting ways we can share that with our kids and our community.
Yeah, we had talked in our breakout group, Haley and I, about how, well, I had mentioned how when I do research assistance with the college students, a lot of the time I'm asking those purposeful questions. The student will say, well, I want to write about this topic. And I'll say, okay, what's your research question? You know, what is there a problem that you want to focus on? And so then we have to get to that. And I have to constantly ask them to, you know, what's another example? Can you clarify? So you're saying, so you're thinking, what's the evidence? Sometimes people come in and they'll say, I need articles that show this. And I'll say, okay, what's your evidence for this being a thing, right? And so it was amazing to see how, like, you start asking questions of young people, and then they mature into these older people that are writing, you know, the research papers for college. I love that continuity. So, and then, you know, at community college, we plant seeds, but we hardly ever see them blossom, you know. They go on to 4-year college, or they go back to their job, and you know, I have no idea what they do with those skills that we teach them. Occasionally I hear from people, but
That's a great metaphor. I love that. It's so true. I think of a lot of different facets of education. You sow the seeds and you hope it's doing some good, and
right.
and you send them off.
I think a lot of reference librarian work is like that, whether it's at a public library or, I mean, you plant the seed and you have no idea whether it grows, flourishes, what the fruit is. So.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'll do one more plug for Acres. If you are interested in doing more or learning more about purposeful questions, diving in for yourself or any colleagues that you want to share the ideas with, we always have open cohorts, at least through March. They are going to be free, and there is an opportunity for a stipend if you fill out a pre and post survey. So our website is acrescoaching.org. And if you go to join a cohort, you can see that our baseline fundamental module, if it loads, is purposeful questions, which we touched upon a little bit today. And then we also have 2 full modules for voice and choice, as well as STEM identity and career connections. We also have more specific to different content. So there's a making math engaging, science practices, and engineering practices as well. So those are all things that you kind of got tastes of today, but if you are looking to learn more, we suggest asking purposeful questions first, and then any of the other ones are available as well. So these are always being updated, and if you do have a group of staff that you're hoping to get everyone in together, then we can also work with you to set up separate dates as well. But just as for what's here right now, we have some coming up, and we try to schedule them at different times of the day, sometime afternoons, sometimes later in the day. So yeah, just thought I would share that with you as well. And thank you all. I will, without further ado, unless you have any additional questions, I'll turn it back over to Chris and Marika and Cara.